The folder hit the marble floor first. Then the screaming started, not out loud, but in the eyes of every executive in that room, the kind of silent panic that spreads through a five-star hotel lounge in under 2 seconds. Kang Do-hyeon's bodyguard had just dropped confidential negotiation documents worth $200 million onto the floor of the Orium Grand Hotel, in front of the one man in Manhattan nobody dared to embarrass. Amara Nwosu didn't think. She just moved. She dropped to her knees and started gathering the pages before anyone else even registered what had happened, stacking them fast, careful not to look at a single word. Do-hyeon watched her from across the room. Not with anger, with something closer to interest. "Since you're already touching confidential documents," he said, loud enough for the whole room to hear, "perhaps you'd like to organize them for us." Laughter rippled through the executives near the bar. Cruel, easy laughter, the kind rich people give away for free when someone beneath them is about to be humiliated. The hotel manager, watching from the doorway, felt his career flash before his eyes. Nobody in that room knew that 3 years earlier, Amara had been one of the most dangerous financial investigators in the country, dangerous to the people she investigated anyway. Nobody knew a scandal she didn't cause had taken her badge, her reputation, and nearly her freedom. They just saw a concierge sitting down at a side table, quietly sorting through 200 pages of numbers she was never supposed to understand. If this story hooks you in the first 30 seconds, hit subscribe now, because it only gets more insane from here. 10 minutes passed. The room forgot about her. The deal moved forward. Lawyers murmured, executives shook hands, champagne started pouring. Someone near the bar chuckled, glancing over his shoulder. "She'll still be sorting those by dinner." Another executive smirked into his glass. "Give her a raise. Head of paperwork." Nobody was watching her anymore. That was the point. Then Amara stood up. "Sir," she said, and her voice cut through the room like a blade. "Before you sign this, you need to see something." Do-hyeon turned. "Excuse me." "There's an annex buried on page 41, she said. "It's formatted to look like part of the original agreement. It isn't. If you sign this as written, you're transferring partial ownership of 3 of your companies to someone else in this room." Silence. One of the lawyers grabbed the page from her hands. His face went white as he read it. She's right," he stammered. "Sir, this is a live transfer clause. If you'd signed." "I know what it would have done," Do-hyeon said quietly, cutting him off. He turned back to Amara. The room that had been laughing at her 60 seconds ago was now dead silent, staring at a concierge who had just saved a $200 million empire from a trap nobody else in the room had caught. "Who are you?" Do-hyeon asked. "Nobody important," Amara said and walked away. He didn't believe that for a second. By morning, the hotel had already made its decision. Amara wasn't rewarded for saving the deal. She was suspended for interfering in it. "You broke protocol," her manager told her, refusing to meet her eyes. "It doesn't matter that you were right. You embarrass people who matter." "I stopped an act of fraud," Amara said flatly. "That's not the point, and you know it." She didn't argue. She'd known this was coming the second she opened her mouth in that room. Some costs were worth paying. At home, the guilt hit different people in different ways. Her father, still recovering from his stroke, apologized for being a burden she couldn't afford. Her younger brother offered to drop out of university and get a job. "Absolutely not," Amara said before he could finish the sentence. "Amara, you just lost your income. And you're 1 semester from graduating with an engineering degree. We are not doing this conversation again." She softened just slightly. "We'll figure out the money. We always do." That night, her phone buzzed. A message from a name she hadn't seen in over a year. Tobias, an old colleague from her investigator days, someone who still worked in financial compliance. "You still got your old instincts? Something weird just surfaced. Thought you'd want to know." She called him back immediately. "Talk to me," she said. A shell network that's been completely dead for years just woke up, Tobias said. Multiple entities, all quietly reactivating filings this month. And they've all got this bizarre naming theme. Flowers. Flowers. Lily Ventures. Iris Capital. Orchid Trust. And this one, Camellia Holdings, it's the one that keeps showing up everywhere, but every time I try to trace who owns it, the trail just dies. Amara felt something cold move through her chest. A feeling she hadn't felt in 3 years. The feeling of a hunt starting. "Send me everything you've got," she said. She had no idea, not yet, that the thread she was pulling connected directly to the man who'd humiliated her in that hotel lounge less than 24 hours earlier. 2 nights later, walking home from a temp shift, she noticed the car. Then the second one. 2 men stepped out onto the sidewalk ahead of her, deliberately blocking her path. Her pulse spiked. She reached for her phone. Before she could dial, 2 black SUVs screeched to a stop at the curb behind her. A man stepped out. Tall. Composed. The kind of calm that only comes from someone who has never once needed to raise his voice to be obeyed. The 2 men on the sidewalk took one look at him and disappeared into the dark without a word. "Who are you?" Amara demanded, backing up. "Eun Suk-jin," he said, "head of security for Kang Do-hyeon." "I don't need protection." "You do tonight," Suk-jin said. "Our chairman doesn't ignore debts." Then he was gone, and so were the SUVs, as if none of it had happened. 3 days later, a handwritten invitation arrived. No letterhead. No explanation. Do-hyeon wanted to meet, not at the hotel, at a private tea house across town. She almost threw it away. Instead, she went. The tea house was small, quiet, empty except for the 2 of them. No bodyguards. No audience.
"You didn't have to come,"
Do-hyeon said, pouring tea without looking up. "You didn't have to send men to intimidate me into it." "They weren't sent to intimidate you," he said. "They were sent to make sure you got home safely. There's a difference." "Is there?" He finally looked at her. "I'm offering you a job. Auditing contracts for the legitimate side of my business. Real authority. Real access to the books. Not a token position to make me look generous. And if I find something you don't like, then I'll deal with it," he said. "That's the point of hiring someone who can't be bought." "Everyone can be bought," Amara said. "You just haven't found my price yet." "I don't think that's true," he said. "But if it is, name it and I'll walk away right now." She studied him, waiting for the catch. It didn't come. If you're enjoying this story so far, drop a comment telling me what you think happens next. I read every single one. Amara studied him for a long moment. "Why me?" "Because you're the only person in that room who noticed something 200 lawyers missed." "That's not why," she said. "You looked into me. Deeply. Tell me the truth." He didn't flinch. "Yes, I did." "What did you find?" "Your education. Your career as a federal investigator. The scandal that ended it." He paused. "I know you were framed." Something cold moved through her chest, sharper this time. "I never told anyone that." "I know." She stood up so fast the teacup rattled. "The last powerful man who learned everything about me also told me he valued honesty. Right before he destroyed my entire life to protect himself. I'm not him. You don't get to decide that. I do." Her voice dropped, quiet and precise. "Respect isn't proving how much you know about someone. It's proving they were safe telling you." She walked out. He didn't follow her. He didn't call Suk-jin to trail her home, the way he might have with anyone else who'd just rejected him. For the first time in longer than he could remember, he simply let someone leave. He sat there long after she'd gone, her words repeating in his mind like something lodged under his skin. It's proving they were safe telling you. A standard, he realized, he had never once applied to himself. Not in business. Not with his own family. Certainly not inside the syndicate he'd inherited, where trust was a currency everyone spent and nobody actually gave away. That night, alone in his office, he opened her old investigation file again. Not to recruit her this time. To find out exactly who had destroyed her life. Over the following days, 2 separate investigations moved forward, each one unaware of how violently they were about to collide. Amara worked late into the night, spreading printouts across her kitchen table long after her father and brother had gone to sleep. Every path led back to the same cluster of shell companies. And always sitting at the center of the web, like something patient and deliberate, Camellia Holdings. "Come on," she muttered, staring at another dead-end filing. "Somebody built you. Somebody's hiding behind you." The trail kept dying. Records erased. Ownership structures folded in on themselves like a puzzle box with no visible seams. This wasn't sloppy money laundering. This was someone who'd spent years, maybe longer, making absolutely certain nobody could trace it back to a name. Meanwhile, inside Baekryong headquarters, Do-hyeon sat across from Suk-jin, 6 personnel files spread across the table between them. Only 6 people had the access required to plant that annex, Do-hyeon said. "Walk me through each one." Suk-jin went through them one by one. A financial director with 8 years of loyalty. A junior lawyer with access, but no motive. 2 members of security. His personal assistant, who'd never given him a single reason to doubt her. And Han Sung-min. "Not him," Do-hyeon said immediately. "I'm not accusing anyone," Suk-jin said carefully. "I'm just saying every name on this list has access, including his. He helped raise me after my father died. He built half of what we have." "I know," Suk-jin said. "That's exactly why I'd start there." Do-hyeon said nothing, but the words stayed with him. "You don't believe me," Suk-jin said. "I believe you're right to check," Do-hyeon said. "I just don't want it to be him." Nobody ever does. That's usually when it is. The break came almost by accident. Late one night, Suk-jin was reviewing old archived security files, a routine task, nothing more, when a name stopped him cold. Camellia Holdings. "Sir," he said, walking straight into Do-hyeon's office without knocking. "I need you to see this." "What is it?" "That name. Camellia Holdings. I've seen it before years ago, during a security job I nearly forgot about. It surfaced briefly in a fraud case. The one that ended some investigator's career." He paused. "Her name was Nwosu." Do-hyeon went completely still. "Say that again." "Amara Nwosu. Same name from the hotel." The 2 investigations, one built around a boardroom betrayal, one built around a woman's ruined life, had just become the exact same case. Not through coincidence. Through evidence. It didn't take long after that to identify the traitor. When Do-hyeon confronted the truth about Han Sung-min privately, alone in his office, he felt something in his chest crack that had nothing to do with money. 20 years, he said quietly to no one. 20 years, and it was you. But he didn't move on Han yet. Instead, he did something far riskier, something he told absolutely no one. He found the real evidence proving Amara had been framed. Solid, undeniable proof. Enough to clear her name completely. Submitting it wasn't safe. The documents were tangled up in old, confidential Baekryong records that, if examined too closely by the wrong person, could reveal someone was already digging into the past. If Han caught even a hint of it, he'd realize he was being hunted before Do-hyeon was ready to strike. If he finds out, Suk-jin warned, he'll destroy everything before we can prove it. "I know. You're risking the entire case for a woman who told you to your face she doesn't trust you." Do-hyeon didn't hesitate. Submitted anyway. He never told her what he'd done. Days later, Amara received an official letter. Her case had been reopened. Her professional record was under formal review. There was a real chance her license, the thing that once defined her entire life, could be restored. She read it twice. Then she started making calls. Within 2 days, she was staring at a name she already suspected. "It's him," she said quietly, setting the phone down. "It has to be." She confronted him that evening, in a quiet office with no assistants, no security in sight. "Why would you risk reopening my case?" she demanded. "You had nothing to gain. If it went wrong, it could have exposed your own investigation before you were ready." "Because it was wrong," Do-hyeon said simply. "That's not an answer. It's the only one I have." She stared at him, waiting for the part where powerful men usually revealed what they actually wanted. A condition, a request, some quiet reminder that she owed him now. Nothing came. "You could have told me," she said, quieter now. "Let me thank you." "It was never about you thanking me," he said. "It was about the truth existing, whether or not you ever knew I had anything to do with it." For the first time since any of this began, Amara let herself believe something she'd been afraid to believe. That his actions hadn't been transactional. That he hadn't fixed her life to earn her loyalty. He'd done it because in his mind there had simply been no other option worth considering. "I'll take the position," she said. "Which one?" "All of it," she said. "The audit job. And whatever this is that we're actually doing." "One condition," she added. "Name it." "The first time I find something you don't want me to report," she said, "I report it anyway." A beat passed between them. "That's exactly why I hired you," Do-hyeon said. "We're almost at the part of the story you've been waiting for. If you haven't already, tap that like button. It genuinely helps this story reach more people." With Amara's expertise and Do-hyeon's resources finally combined, Han Sung-min's scheme began to collapse fast. It took another week of relentless cross-referencing, her shell companies matched against his internal access logs, before every signature, every falsified timestamp, locked together into one undeniable picture. They confronted him in his own office, the same office where he'd mentored Do-hyeon through 100 decisions over 20 years. Do-hyeon laid the evidence on the desk without a word. Han looked at it for a long moment. When he looked up, there was no shock on his face. Only exhaustion. "You finally figure it out," he said quietly. 20 years, Sung-min, Do-hyeon said, his voice shaking with something between grief and rage. 20 years, and you let me call you family. I am your family. Family doesn't do this. Han said nothing to that. He simply looked at Do-hyeon with something unreadable, not guilt, not fear. Something closer to pity. Han's hand moved fast, toward the drawer beside him, toward the small black remote sitting inside it. One press, and every remaining server in that office would wipe itself clean in under 10 seconds. Amara saw it half a second before Do-hyeon did. Suk-jin now. Suk-jin was already moving. He slammed Han against the desk before his hand ever reached the drawer, pinning his arm behind his back. For one heart-stopping second, both Amara and Do-hyeon had been standing close enough to a man who'd clearly decided he had nothing left to lose. "It's over," Do-hyeon said, breathing hard. Han didn't struggle. He simply looked at Do-hyeon, calm and unblinking, and said quietly, "You still think this began with me?" A pause. "I stopped choosing a long time ago." He said nothing else. 2 security officers pulled him away, and the office went silent. Do-hyeon stood there, staring at the empty doorway, feeling something far worse than betrayal settle into his chest. Authorities took over the visible case within days. The forged annex scheme collapsed publicly. Han was formally charged. To the world watching from outside, justice had been served cleanly. But Camellia Holdings vanished from every database within hours, as if it had known exactly how this would end. The visible conspiracy was defeated. Whatever was underneath, it slipped away, completely untouched. That night, standing outside the building where everything had finally come apart, Do-hyeon and Amara didn't talk about the danger they just walked away from. "You're the first person," Do-hyeon said quietly, "who risked everything simply to tell me the truth." Amara allowed herself a small, tired smile. Then don't waste it. Back at headquarters, Suk-jin worked through the night trying to recover anything left on Han's encrypted phone. Most of it had been deliberately destroyed. Not everything. "I've got something," he said, calling them both into the room. A single message appeared on the screen, sent weeks before any of this started. Phase 1 complete. Attached to it was a symbol none of them recognized. A black flower, rendered in sharp, deliberate detail. Amara stared at it, and every muscle in her body went rigid. "I've seen that before," she whispered. "Where?" Do-hyeon asked. "The final case I worked. Before everything was taken from me. That symbol was buried in the last file I ever touched." The room went dead silent. Suk-jin's hands moved fast across the keyboard. "There's one more fragment. Audio. It's damaged, but..." He hit play. Han's voice crackled through the speaker, barely audible. "Ask your father's old partners what really happened to the Baekryong founding money. Then decide who the real traitor is." The recording cut off. Nobody spoke for a long moment. For the first time in his entire life, Do-hyeon wasn't asking who had betrayed him. He was asking whether he had ever truly understood the empire his father left behind. Outside the windows, the city moved on exactly as it always had, indifferent to what had just been uncovered inside that room. And somewhere else, on a device none of them would ever see, a message arrived. Phase 1 confirmed. The identity of whoever received it remained a complete mystery. If you want to see what happens when Amara and Do-hyeon find out who's really behind Black Orchid, subscribe now so you don't miss part 2. And let me know in the comments what you think that symbol really means.